Dzień dobry Państwu.
Good
Weronika Gawińska.
afternoon. My name is Weronika Gawinska-Rylikis from the Janusz Kurtyka Foundation.
Mam zaszczyt zaprosić
I
Państwa,
have the honor to invite you to a meeting within the framework of the project Seeds of History 3.0 Relive Generations,
które zostało zorganizowane
which
przez
has been organized by the Janusz Kurtyka Foundation
oraz Polską Szkołę
and the St. Jadwiga the Queen Polish Saturday School, Forest Gate, Ilford in the UK. Today's meeting is under the title Westerplatte, the symbol of Polish Heroism webinar with Professor Pietrzak. I also would like to welcome our guests today. Professor Jacek Pietrzak, PhD, University Professor. He works at the Institute of History at the University of Łódź, and his main research interests are Polish emigration after 1939, relations between Poland and the Middle East, Polish armed forces in exile during World War II, as well as biographical studies of recent history. Good morning, Professor. Mr. Paweł Kurtyka, President of the Janusz Kurtyka Foundation. Good morning. The meeting shall be moderated by Mr. Marek Cebulski. He is a history teacher at the St. Jadwiga the Queen Polish Saturday School, Forest Gate, Ilford in the UK. He is a great enthusiast and researcher of history, tracker of riddles and mysteries of the Górski region and London. He is a teacher of Polish, documentary filmmaker, explorer of the Wonderworld, creator and administrator of the fan page on the social networking webpage on Facebook, Nowa Ruda Neurode, the mysteries and riddles of history. And he is the author of books on history, and his motto is "Because History is Cool." The project Seeds of History 3.0 Relay of Generations is financed by the Chancellor of the Prime Minister as part of the Polonia and Polish Abroad 2023 competition. The media partners are Block Press and British Pulse. And I would like to give the floor to Mr. Paweł Kurtyka, President of the Janusz Kurtyka Foundation. Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone. I would like to thank Professor for his willingness to take part in this meeting, and also would like to thank the host and the co-host of this meeting, that is the representatives of the St. Jadwiga the Queen Polish Saturday School, Forest Gate, Ilford in the UK, and I hope that today's discussion will be very interesting for all the participants. We're going to talk about Westerplatte as the symbol of Polish heroism. However, the Westerplatte story has quite a number of interesting contexts, and I think that is going to be presented here today because there is a context of incredible heroism, but also we will find out who was really in command of the defense, because the history of Westerplatte is actually more complex than just the history of heroism. And perhaps it's important to talk about it in a greater context and to speak about the defense of the Polish coastline as an interesting topic in World War II, because the greatest, one of the most effective defense of the entire territory of Poland during the September campaign was the defense of the Hel Peninsula. The Hel Peninsula was the last one to surrender. However, that was happening also in the shadow of the Westerplatte defense. So we are going to talk about the context and the great heroism, because this story is not really black and white, and it's much more interesting, and it's quite lively once we start talking about the people who were taking the decisions and about the challenges they had to face. So Westerplatte, it's not just a Westerplatte monument, but it's about specific people, their decisions, and quite interesting contexts. And after the war, we will see how the myth of Westerplatte was established after the war. And today this memory reverberates with the society. The way we commemorate Westerplatte, there is an idea to develop a real museum in Westerplatte, because the only memorial site is the small branch of the Museum of Gdańsk. It's quite old, and it was founded by the defenders of Westerplatte back in the communist days. So Westerplatte is actually a challenge also today, and how to tell the story today. And I do hope that we're going to talk about many of these topics today. And if not, we, as the Janusz Kurtyka Foundation, we will be more than happy to talk about it during the future discussions. So let us proceed, and let us move on to today's interview, or a moderated lecture, rather. So I wish you a wonderful intellectual feast. Thank you. On our behalf, I also would like to thank for this possibility of meeting you. I would like to thank Veronika for the preparation of this meeting. Professor, we are very much excited, and we've been looking forward to this lecture, and many questions were asked by the students before the lecture, and we're very much excited, and we apologize for some technical glitches we might have. It's the first time ever we're connecting on this large scale with another country on the internet, but we're ready for a very interesting lecture. Westerplatte here in the UK is indeed the symbol of heroism. We always speak of Westerplatte whenever we speak of World War II, but also we watch videos that are available on the net, but we would like to talk about the fact and the real story about those heroes who fought against the German invaders for a period of 7 days. I already have questions, but I will ask you those questions after the lecture. So many thanks again for this possibility of meeting you, and we will be happy to listen to your lecture. We're all ears. Thank you. Thank you very much. I would like to welcome everyone cordially. Indeed, we have heard the word symbol. Indeed, for Poles, Westerplatte seems to be one of the greatest symbols of heroism during World War II. However, we know that the war did not start at Westerplatte. It did not start with an attack against the Westerplatte Peninsula. And from the military point of view, there were many other combat operations in 1939 during the September campaign, as Poland was defended. But I would like to talk about the Westerplatte and why it has been elevated to a status of a symbol. For the first time ever, I visited the Westerplatte 45 years ago. For me, that was an exceptional experience. Although those days in the past, I didn't really know much about the events at the Westerplatte. But for us to understand the significance of Westerplatte, we need to go back to the history of Gdańsk. This is where the key is. Gdańsk had played an important role in Poland prior to the partitions. Gdańsk was a window to the world. Gdańsk was a key center of economic and business life in Poland. It was the international trade center for Poland. But then the time of partitions came. Gdańsk became part of Prussia, and until World War I, there was a short period of time when it was ruled by the Napoleonic France, and it was quite an important military center at the time. Then, during the Prussian partitions, the Gdańsk is undergoing a change. It is being Germanized very rapidly, so Gdańsk is turning into a German city. This is how we should put it directly. Ethnically speaking, it is becoming a German city, and that explains the problems that later on were faced by the great superpowers with the city of Gdańsk after World War I, as they were trying to establish a new world and European order. Naturally, from our point of view, Gdańsk has to become a part of Poland, but it was not such an obvious decision for the superpowers. On the one hand, in line with the so-called the 13th point of the appeal of Woodrow Wilson appeal, Poland is supposed to have free access to the sea. However, on the other hand, Gdańsk, ethnically speaking, from the ethnical point of view, was dominated by the German population. There are many different estimates as to how many Poles lived in Gdańsk, how many Kaszeby were there. Generally speaking, it is believed that until 1939, they never constituted more than 10%. Therefore, the powers at Versailles took a decision quite a controversial decision, which was meant to be a compromise. They created a rather strange entity, that is the Free City of Gdańsk. Now, let me show you. I'll share with you my screen and let's have a look at the map. So here we see the green color, that is the Free City of Danzig. It also included Sopot. Sopot at the time was already a renowned sea resort. And here this the Żuławy area, just south of the Free City of Danzig. So all of that territory constituted the so-called Free City of Danzig. Now, Gdańsk was not a state. That is why its international status was very difficult to determine. The Free City of Danzig had its own authority, obviously dominated by the German majority. However, Poland had very important powers. Poland was representing Gdańsk abroad in international relations. There were many different Polish offices in Gdańsk: the Polish mail, the Polish post, the Polish railway. Poland had the right to use the seaport. We need to remember that only a couple of years after the Free City of Danzig was established, the development of Gdynia started. So, in fact, it was due to Gdynia that there was less dependence on Gdańsk and its seaport. Therefore, there is no surprise that Gdańsk has become a focal point of a conflict, of a dispute. On the one hand, there was Poland and Free City of Danzig, but also Polish Weimar Republic and then the Third Reich. So all of those disputes were difficult to avoid. One has to say it clearly. The Germans considered the establishment of a Free City of Danzig as a slap, as something that for them was an unfair act. Therefore, the sentiment was such that Gdańsk was meant to be returned back to Germany. Therefore, the Gdańsk authorities were trying to make it more difficult for the Polish authorities to exercise its rights in Gdańsk. And at the same time, and it's quite interesting, in fact, Gdańsk, business-wise, was benefiting on its relations with Poland, and Gdańsk was developing very well. The life standard in Gdańsk was really good, especially given the general conditions in the interwar period. The League of Nations and its commissioners were exercising control over the free city of Danzig, and however, the League of Nations monitoring was illusionary and was turning less and less significant. And in 1933, Adolf Hitler assumed power in Germany, and the Nazis came to power. Very rapidly, Gdańsk was Nazified. The Nazis were very much supported, had enjoyed great support in Gdańsk, so the National Socialist Party assumed power in Gdańsk easily, and de facto, though not formally, we may say that from the political point of view, Gdańsk became a part of the Third Reich, although officially it was still a free city of Danzig. So we speak about this the de facto Anschluss of Gdańsk to Germany. As far as the relations between Gdańsk and Berlin-Gdańsk and the Third Reich are concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, what was Westerplatte? What was the significance of Westerplatte for Poland? Westerplatte used to be an island at the estuary of the dead Vistula riverbed into the Bay of Gdańsk, and then it was covered, the stretch of the area was covered with sand, and therefore Westerplatte turned into a peninsula. In the past, it used to be a military site. It was also a part of a health resort, but then the health resort was the period of being a sea resort ended 1918. However, for Poland, it was quite important due to the fact that the League of Nations decided to exercise the Polish right to use the port of Gdańsk to receive the military equipment transported by sea routes. Therefore, some kind of post was necessary to be protected by the Polish army in the territory of the Free City of Danzig, so as the Polish authorities could import the military equipment. Therefore, it was determined that such military posts were to be established in Westerplatte. The final decision was taken 1925 September, and in January 1926, the first Polish soldiers were already stationed in Westerplatte. And this is how we have an exclave, as the professional term goes. That is to say, a singled-out Polish post in the territory of the Free City of Danzig.
They say that Gdańsk was really a barometer of the Polish-German relations, and the status quo in Gdańsk showed the condition of those relationships. Taking into consideration the significance of Gdańsk for Berlin, it goes without saying that when Adolf Hitler, towards the end of 1938, started to offer his proposals, which were really demands towards Poland, one of the key was to liquidate the status of a free city, so inclusion of Gdańsk or Danzig to the Third Reich. That situation also meant that the world received somewhat mistaken information that in the Polish-German relations, the only problem is Gdańsk. That's why in 1939, a French politician, formerly socialist, later supporting the Nazi, wrote an article, "Should we be dying for Gdańsk?" That was the title. It showed that it's just one city. It's just very little area. Why should Europe be losing their lives for that? That, of course, blurred the actual face of the Polish-German conflict. When Polish authorities rejected the German claims, war became the issue of coming months. And it was already known that Germans would recognize one of the basic military goals, the liquidation of Polish outposts in Gdańsk, the post and Westerplatte, because that would be of propagandist importance, the return of Gdańsk to Germany, as they claimed. Nevertheless, we must say that Hitler himself, at a secret meeting of Wehrmacht chiefs, said that in the war that we will wage against Poland, it's not after Gdańsk, it's about liquidation of the Polish state and winning the space to live in the east. So Gdańsk was there for propagandist use. Poland planned an intervention, an armed intervention in Gdańsk, should the German attack be only connected to the project of the Third Reich taking over Gdańsk, overrunning it. That's why Westerplatte got a particular task. They were supposed to survive 6 hours, then they exchanged it, they expanded it to 12 hours. You are supposed to survive there for 12 hours, and you've got to wait for the Polish Intervention Corps. As we know, the developments did not allow this Intervention Corps enter action because Germany attacked along the whole length of the Polish border. At the time, in Westerplatte, there were stationed around 200 Polish soldiers. When it comes to the precise number, there are controversies, including 6 officers, 4 line officers, 1 technical, and 1 officer was a physician. The soldiers came from all over the country, all the corners of Poland, regular drafted soldiers. The commander, since the end of 1938, the formal name of the unit was the Military Transit Depot, and the commander from the end of 1938 was Major Henryk Sucharski. Experienced officer. Here we can see him while still a captain. He was a young officer at the time. He was the son of a shoemaker, cobbler from near Tarnów. He fought during the First World War in Austrian army on the Italian front, and then in Polish against first Czechs and then Bolsheviks. He excelled with great heroism when he was not yet 22, and he received a Virtuti Militari. The officer was believed to be very solid, fantastic military instructor. However, at the time he was also battling major health issues. The deputy of Major Sucharski was Captain Franciszek Dąbrowski, nearly 6 years his junior, professional officer, son of a general of the Polish army. Interestingly, Captain Dąbrowski was of Czech-Austrian origin, the great son of a famous Czech opera singer. And his origin shows that ethnicity doesn't count. What really counts is which country you feel aligned to, which country you feel your allegiance for. And now, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to the order of battle in defense of Westerplatte, obviously, I'm not going into all the detail. I'll only try to impart the most important message, as there have been plenty of myths accruing around Westerplatte, starting from that generally people believe that opening fire by Schleswig-Holstein to the Westerplatte crew started the Second World War. We know that on the 25th of August, that old dreadnought built in 1906, so training men of war, but with powerful artillery, arrived in Gdańsk on so-called courtesy visit. It was to start the attack at 4:45, but because it had to maneuver, that got a bit delayed, and actually the firing started at 4:48. At the time, the war was already raging. At least an hour earlier, there were skirmishes at the border, and the German bombers were already attacking Polish targets, including the Tczew Bridge, and also, for example, Wieluń, a little city, was totally raided, even though it was a civilian city, a civilian target. Nevertheless, for the reason of symbolism of Gdańsk, of Westerplatte, there was that conviction that this is where the aggression started. Aggression against Poland, naturally. It is also said that this defense lasted for 7 days. It's not so that they were fighting for 7 days uninterruptedly. That would be impossible. The heaviest fights took place on the 1st of September, and it was of key importance for the legend of Westerplatte. If the developments went a different way, Westerplatte would never have become such a symbol. On the 1st of September, there were 2 German attacks. Germans used a detachment of Kriegsmarine sailors, seamen, a company of Kriegsmarine seamen as the main force for the attack. That unit also incurred the heaviest losses on the German side. Germans also would later use the SS troop from Gdańsk. Their military prowess was very low, and then they would have a special storm battalion later on. But the key role was played by the infantry fighting on foot. 2 attacks from the 1st of September were repulsed beautifully by the Polish crew. And that was a heavy propagandist defeat for Germans because Hitler wanted to announce on the 1st of September that there is no more Polish post in Gdańsk. Please remember that the civilian Polish post was also attacked on the same day, which, after a heroic defense of civilians defending it, was captured. So it was to show on the first day that Gdańsk is a part of the Reich. Germans failed at that, and that was a heavy blow for Germans who were working on all the propagandist entourage for that. If Westerplatte failed on the 1st of September, that would have been a powerful propagandist blow and a blow against the morale of the Polish society. The losses Germans incurred were so big and they were so surprised with the Polish resistance that for several following days, all they did was to plan another attack of infantry, focusing on shelling Westerplatte from guns. Most importantly, late in the afternoon on the 2nd of September, they launched the only air raid. These were the famous bombers, diving bombers, Junkers 87 Sztuka, in Polish known as Sztukasy. That was a horrible attack. That was during this air raid that the Polish crew incurred heaviest losses, much worse than during the attack of the German seamen, heavier than from the artillery shelling. That attack caused a real shock among the defenders, and this has to be said very clearly. In some soldiers, it even caused the shell shock and breakdown. There is still unsolved situation about the attitude of Major Sucharski after that air raid. Many sources point to the fact that he might have really broken down then. But we must be very careful about it because, to tell you the truth, we don't know the scale of that breakdown, potential breakdown. It's easy to make charges, but they have no support in the sources. Let's be careful and cautious. One thing is certain, Major Sucharski really wanted to give up Westerplatte on the 2nd September, but that also resulted from the instructions he received from the authorities. He was supposed to defend the place for 12 hours, so in that sense, that was absolutely justified. It's generally believed that this decision of Sucharski was opposed by his deputy, the aforementioned Captain Dąbrowski. Most likely, we can say that beginning with evening of the 2nd September, the informal commander of the defense was him, Captain Franciszek Dąbrowski. But all the details remain unknown because all we have are just accounts, yeah, but we've got to approach them with caution. I suggest that you treat them all with caution. Germans were getting ready for a general attack. On the night of 5th, 6th September, they set fire to a tanker train. They wanted the forest in Westerplatte to catch fire. Yet the Polish defenders were very weary, and they had that train explode earlier, and there was no major forest fire, so that German idea failed. The general storm, the general attack, was slated for the 7th of September. Early on the 7th of September, Germans had a reconnaissance, and it was not a successful one. Nevertheless, the Polish authority decided to capitulate. That decision, of course, was taken by the formal commander, Major Sucharski. Why? First of all, because of the condition of the wounded, who had nothing to dress their wounds, no drugs. And the other issue was that they feared that the following German attack would be conducted by better prepared forces, larger forces, and that it would end in massacre, and that it would really be the Polish thermopiles. Capitulation took place around 10 a.m. between 9:30 and 10:30 on the 7th September 39. Polish soldiers who went with a parley against the later legends were treated fairly brutally by Germans. First of all, they had things stolen, uniforms, personal chattels. It was only later that the German commander responsible for the attack on Westerplatte, General Friedrich Eberhard, decided to pay symbolic homage to the courage of those defenders of Westerplatte. The sword stolen from Major Sucharski was returned to him. He's leaning here on his sword, is a Polish saber. It was taken away from him, by the way, again when he became a prisoner of war. But Germans were trying, and that was an element of building the myth of those knightly Wehrmacht, the chivalric Wehrmacht treating the enemies like knights with all proper chivalric code. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Polish soldiers were taken prisoners of war, but already at that time, already on the day of capitulation, Westerplatte were turning into a legend, because surprised with the scale of the German attack, the Polish society needed a symbol that would instill the hearts with courage. And Westerplatte was turning into such a symbol. They were talking about the Westerplatte lions. It was not only for Poles, it was for the whole world, because in foreign press informed a lot about defense of Westerplatte, especially American, especially New York Times. They had a great system of journalists on distant outposts. Also, neutral states wrote with a lot of awe about Westerplatte. They compared it to the Greek Thermopylae. Americans compared it to the famous defense of Alamo in Texas in the 1830s. So very quickly, Westerplatte became an international symbol. It goes without saying that also for the Germans who wanted to sell the capitulation of Westerplatte as a part of their propaganda. When they failed to capture this post on the 1st of September, they began to create a myth that Westerplatte was really reinforced, that there was a system of powerful bunkers, difficult to capture, that in fact Westerplatte is Polish Verdun or the Polish Maginot Line. That was absolute rubbish and balderdash. However, it also showed what a problem Westerplatte was turning into for German propaganda.
ladies and gentlemen, for Nazi authorities, it meant it was so important that even Hitler came to Gdańsk, and on the 19th of September, he was in Westerplatte. He was accompanied by a group of journalists and filmmakers with the films with Leni Riefenstahl. And so it had a very important propaganda campaign attached to that visit. Therefore, there is no wonder that Westerplatte already in September 1939 became a powerful symbol. When the war ended, the defenders of Westerplatte, and by the way, it should be mentioned that we do not actually know how many of them died. The same, it was 15, but it was probably around 20 people who died in action. There were many more wounded. The German losses were much higher than that. That goes beyond any doubt. And after the liberation, the fate of the Polish soldiers varied. All the Polish soldiers who, just like all the Polish soldiers who fought during World War II, the majority decided to go back to Poland, to return to Poland, but some of them stayed in exile. They didn't want to go back to communist Poland. And what is quite interesting is that there was also a group of soldiers who decided to settle in Germany. And they even married German women. And it shows the complexity of the Polish fate. The Polish communist authorities initially were trying to fight against all the symbols that were making references to pre-war Poland. But after the end of Stalinism in 1956, some changes took place, and the authorities in the 1960s decided to include the non-communist elements of non-communist history of World War II and to utilize them for their own political ends. So that was the so-called national legitimization of the communist power. Therefore, they were using some elements. They were saying that not everything was bad. In 1939, the authorities failed. The Sanation authorities failed. However, the soldiers were brave, and therefore honor should be given to the soldiers. And that is why the decision was taken to build a monument at Westerplatte. It was built in 1966, and it was not called the Westerplatte Defenders Monument, but the Monument to the Defenders of the Coast. And it was commemorating the soldiers of the so-called People's Polish Army that was fighting during World War II. After 1989, after gaining independence and sovereignty, all the matters could be discussed freely, including the legends. And this is when some facts surfaced and disputes surfaced that were not really known to society. Those were the disputes about the defense of Westerplatte. There were books and articles published. And the key dispute was about who really was in command of the defense of Westerplatte. And there were some informations that were undermining the position of Sucharski. And apart from apart from some specific and critical information, there was the so-called hate in the internet, with the internet, and so Major Sucharski was depreciated, and that was, in fact, degrading the real dispute and the real discourse and discussion about the real commanders of the defenders of Westerplatte. But there was not the only dispute. Another dispute was the issue of the reconciliation between the Westerplatte defenders and the Nazi Navy troopers. Also, another dispute was about the activities of the Polish secret services and their operations within the veterans, within the groups of veterans, including the defenders of Westerplatte. So the security services of the communist Poland were trying to control the veterans of Westerplatte, and they were trying to influence their decisions and the choices they were making. But all of those disputes should not diminish the significance of Westerplatte and should not diminish the legend of Westerplatte. Some matters have to be balanced. It is important to balance the two aspects. Westerplatte shall always be a symbol. On the other hand, there is an attempt to objectively assess the specific activities, concrete activities that were taking place. What does Westerplatte show us? It shows that the heroes, wonderful heroes, people who discharged of their duties, they were not made of steel, they were not made of marble. Those were real people of blood and flesh. They had their own weaknesses, their doubts. They had their own conflicts. That is true. History is never black and white. And all of those disputes and debates, if they are taking place without any hate rhetoric, do make sense, and they do not diminish the honor of the defenders of Westerplatte. Here we see one of such symbols by a poem written by Konstanty Gołczyński, already 1939, the song about the defenders of Westerplatte. And this poem is a token of honor paid to the defenders of Westerplatte by society. Also, Pope John Paul II, when he visited Poland and spoke at Westerplatte, he used this very poem as a metaphor that everyone's got a Westerplatte, because Westerplatte is more than just a military event. Westerplatte is a symbol of a certain stance. It's a symbol of duty performed, and even more than that, the Westerplatte is symbolic of duty done, and even more acts are done than was expected of those soldiers. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you very much, Professor. I have received a number of questions during the lecture, and I'm looking at our timeline. I see we have time for some questions. So the first question I received is the following. You mentioned that the Germans called Westerplatte the Polish Verdun, the Maginot Line. How was it? Was it really a fortified place? Were there any bunkers, or it was just the barracks? But was there any physical line of defense? Was it a real stronghold? Well, in fact, Westerplatte, well, there were the guardhouses. We need to understand, to realize what was the purpose of of that military post. They were there to monitor the correct transit of goods. Therefore, the legal basis for the infrastructural basis were just the guardhouses. No specific defense lines were done because no one expected that line of defense. So Westerplatte was not to be a defense military outpost. It was just an outpost. There's one monitoring the correctness of the flow of military goods. So there were only guardhouses. Thank you. And the next question that we have here about the visit of Adolf Hitler to Westerplatte. Now, we understand that indeed the Germans wanted to show this as Festung Westerplatte, very stronghold and big German army beating the Poles. But do we have any words? Do we have any information about Adolf Hitler? What did he actually say about the Polish defenders? Or did he just make general references to Westerplatte as the Polish bastion? Well, there are different there were many different articles in the German press, and so first and foremost, in the German press, we can see the point of view of the Nazi propaganda machine. So we can see what the Goebbels propaganda was saying. Hitler was taking heed of the Goebbels propaganda. So Goebbels may have suggested Hitler how to speak about Gdańsk, because Goebbels believed that it may serve the purpose of the German propaganda. If Hitler were to speak about Gdańsk, most probably it was also Goebbels' recommendation to mention it like that. Okay, now another question that I have is the following. You said that approximately from 15 to 20 Polish defenders died in the defense of Westerplatte. Why is it that we do not actually know the exact number of soldiers who fell? So the historians say that it's anywhere between 15 to 20 people who died. Why don't we know? Why is the difference? Well, the difference is the result of the fact that we do not actually know about several people and their fate. And some facts were not being mentioned for many years. For instance, some soldiers may have had been executed by the Polish army for attempts of desertion. During conflicts and during combat operations, this may happen, and therefore we need to take that into consideration as well. Also, a group of soldiers after the bombardment on the 2nd of September were broken down nervously. They were capable of withstanding the assault of the Navy troops, but they were shocked by the bombing by Stuka bombers, diving bombers. So that needs to be taken into consideration as well. So some people were executed. Some people, we actually do not know what happened, and that is why we do not know the true number of those who died in action. The next question that we have: how was it possible that some exhumations were done only recently and not immediately after the end of World War II? Well, it would be difficult for me to give an answer to this question. Basically speaking, we may say that the post-war Polish authorities, and right after the end of the war, when there was no strong drive to push out the memories of the Second Republic of Poland. So Stalinism was not in its heyday yet, but still the authorities of New Poland after the war, as late as the end of the 1950s, for them, they had little access to Westerplatte. Of course, everyone knew the significance of Westerplatte for Poles, but no one actually knew what to do about Westerplatte. So there were some ideas how to commemorate Westerplatte and how Westerplatte should be treated from the point of view of developing the policy of memory and historical policy. But all those ideas were fully developed as late as in the 1960s. So we may say that there was a major change. I remember from my childhood that there was a lot of talk about Westerplatte back in the times of the communist Poland. Also in the government mass media, there was a lot of talk about Westerplatte, and that's a fact. Although it was an element of the Polish propaganda, but we cannot say that Westerplatte was being erased from the Polish memory. Okay, thank you. And one more question now. Professor, have you heard perhaps about the German military or historians? Were Germans interested in finding out who the commander of Westerplatte was, or was it meaningless for Germans who was a true commander of the defense of Westerplatte? Or was it insignificant for the Germans to know? Well, I'm not entirely sure, but to the best of my knowledge, as far as the German military history is concerned, in the Federal Republic of Germany and after the war in the unified Germany, it's not a significant matter. The German historiography was more interested in the military operations on the Eastern Front, and they were more interested in fighting against the Soviets and the Allies. Therefore, I do not know of any detailed studies that would pay some high-level attention or detailed level of attention to Westerplatte.
Well, Let me emphasize that against what you find in different publications, the authorities of the Polish People's Republic didn't fully realize how the issues of related to Westerplatte looked like, and I don't believe that they would try on purpose to make Sucharski into a hero and diminish his deputy. Well, there are no proofs for that. Let's remember that Sucharski was a very uncomfortable person for it. He was a veteran of the war on the Bolsheviks, or the Polish Bolshevik Soviet 1920s war, a nephew of a politician who was connected to Senatia and also an officer in Anders' corps. He died in Italy in 46 as an officer of the Second Corps, which remained in emigration. In turn, Captain Dąbrowski stayed in Poland, and like many Polish officers of the Second Republic who left Oflags, he decided to serve the Polish society. He joined the Polish army. He received his ticket to Navy, and it was only the Stalinist policy of eliminating everyone who participated in Home Army or the Army of the Second Republic, put him in a very difficult position without any means of sustenance. However, there were no political motives, there was no political motivation pointing to it that Sucharski should be okay for the politics of communist Poland and Dąbrowski not. It is another myth that's been created for historical policy. It was important that there were no discussion. Westerplatte was supposed to be a material symbol, and all the controversies, disputes were only believed to put some tangle into it, and there were fears that questions may be asked. So for that reason, certain things were really touched up and hidden, the information about controversies and conflicts, but I believe that this was the only reason and not because of the stories of life, walks of life of the two commanders. Now, the absolutely last question, Professor. Is Westerplatte a symbol of Polish heroism? Yes, I will repeat my previous words. It is, and it should be, because history are not only military facts. We say there were great battles, the Battle of Bzura and many other battles of 39. They did not gain that significance. Westerplatte, well, history primarily are emotions, facts, but also emotions. And this emotional realm is extremely important for the society. And the other issue, independent on all the controversies and bickerings, the fact that on the 1st September, those mostly young soldiers withstood the German onslaught is of key importance. It's not important that there were legends that there were 30 attacks, which was absolute rubbish. That will be impossible. That doesn't matter. Important, they withstood the two on the 1st of September, and they extended this. For a week, Germans didn't know what to do. They took away all the fun of the show from the Nazis, because the Nazis planned a huge show that was all broken into smithereens. It breathed the spirit of encouragement into Poles and became the source of this well-deserved legend of Westerplatte. In this context, how Sucharski felt, what his relations with his deputy is of absolutely secondary importance and is important, if at all, than for historians.
W takim razie, panie profesorze, chciałem
Then,
podziękować
Professor, I'd
w
like to
imieniu
thank you
wszystkich
in my
uczniów,
name and
nauczycieli,
on behalf of all the
nauczycieli,
students
którzy
and
wysłuchali
teachers gathered
pana
here who
wykładu z
listened to
ogromnym
your lecture
zainteresowaniem.
with
Panie
profound
profesorze, Polska
interest.
Szkoła
Professor,
imienia Świętej Królowej Jadwigi
Polish
w Londynie
School
kłania się.
of St.
Bardzo
Hedwig
dziękujemy
in
za
Ilford
uczciwą
in
rozmowę.
London
Bardzo
goes
dziękujemy
down
za
to you.
niezwykle
Thank you very much for your
interesujące
time, for
z
extremely interesting
mnóstwem bardzo
lecture
ciekawych
with plenty
historii.
of very interesting
Myślę, że
stories.
spotkamy się jeszcze
I believe
niejednokrotnie.
we're
Tak jak
going to
uczniowie
meet
krzyczą, że chcieliby
many
się dowiedzieć
times because
więcej
the
o Polsce
students are
Rzeczypospolitej,
already
o obronie
saying that they'd love to
jeszcze
learn
o
something more
tyłu
about the
na
defense of Polish
Zatem
coast,
myślę, że
whether there's some
jeszcze
more
może kiedyś
points of
spotkamy się
resistance in
na
Gdańsk. So
równie
I hope
interesującej,
that
ciekawej
we may
rozmowie,
again meet at an
rozmowie i
equally
wykładzie.
interesting
Cieszę się,
conversation,
że
lecture,
mamy taką możliwość i pan profesor
as
jest
we
już
have this option, and
tutaj nam,
the
Polakom,
professor
pomagać
here is
pomagać.
ready
Bardzo
to
dziękuję, panie profesorze.
help us Poles in emigration. Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me for delivering this lecture. It's been my great pleasure, and I wish you all the best at school, to the teachers and to the
Ja
youth.
jeszcze tylko chciałem podać, że
I just wanted to
podziękuję
add
mojej
that
fundacji imienia
I ask
Kurtyki
very
za
much Janusz Kurtyka
umożliwienie nam
Foundation
tego
for
spotkania, bo to
making this
naprawdę
meeting possible,
fascynująca
because
rzecz,
it is an
niezwykła,
absolutely
rzecz,
fascinating,
którą wykonujemy tu na co
unbelievable
dzień.
thing. That's not
Naprawdę
something we've
jest
got
to coś,
here
czym możemy
day in, day
zaimponować
out.
naszym uczniom.
That's something we may really
Mamy
impress
możliwość
our students with, and
czy
there's an
wyspierowania
option of a discussion, of listening to
Jeszcze raz kłaniam się
a
serdecznie.
lecture by
Fundacja
somebody from the
Westerplatte.
highest echelons of historians. Once again, I bow down very low before the foundation and professor. Thank you very much for participation, professor, moderator, and students. We encourage you to listen to the lectures you can find on the YouTube channel of Janusz Kurtyka Foundation and our partner, that's Glob Press. They are in Polish, German, and English. I invite you to the future events organized under this project, the rally race of the generations. We'll see again on Saturday in December at 1 p.m. Veronica, please turn on your camera.
Bardzo przepraszam.
I'm sorry, let me continue. At 12, we invite to Wojciech Market a lecture on General Sosabowski and General Maczek, the heroic commanders of Polish armed forces in the West. And at 4, Wojciech Market will deliver a lecture on the Second Polish Corps, who the soldiers of General Anders were. Once again, thank you very much and goodbye.